You're listening to Unfiltered Connections, the podcast bridging industries, crossing perspectives, and creating partnerships. I'm your host, Mario Chessa. So welcome to Unfiltered Connections. It's first episode, actually. It's a very special one for me because not only is it the first one, but rather than having a guest, I'm having my son here in the studio. So Luca, thank you very much. Welcome. And thanks for having accepted.
Yeah, no, of course. Happy to be here, of course. And I say let's get started. Let's get to it. And well, first question, of course, I think we're all curious to hear it. Why did you want to start this podcast in the first place?
Right. Well, the first thing, I enjoy a good conversation. I enjoy conversations with people that I know as much as I enjoy conversations with people that I don't know. I think it goes way back already since my teenage years and for most of my 20s, I started listening a lot to radio shows. And I really enjoyed the debating. I enjoyed the exchange of perspectives between people. And I think somehow in the back of my mind already, I was maturing the idea of, hey, one day I want to have my own radio show because I really thought it'd be very nice to do it myself, to exchange perspectives with people. And ultimately, fast forwarding to today, that's what the podcast is today. So here we are doing my first podcast, or if you will, radio show.
Yeah. So now that you have your own podcast, that it's your podcast, what kind of conversations do you want to have?
Well, there's a few topics that I really would like to address. They have to do both with my professional and personal curiosity, so to say. One foremost, and that's obviously more professional, is cross-industry thinking. I've always been, throughout my career, very intrigued by forging partnerships with other industries because I think it adds value. The second one is hospitality and tourism as a platform for other industries. Having worked large part of my life in hospitality, I think it's a tremendous ecosystem that can be connected to the benefit of many industries and vice versa. And then the third one is really talk to people of cultural backgrounds, of different generations, exchange perspectives with them, because I think it adds tremendous value to know about others and their perspectives, both professionally and personally and privately, basically.
No, for sure. And so, interesting that you mentioned your three pillars, of course. Let's zoom in a little bit on your first pillar. Mm-hmm. So you spoke about cross-industry thinking. Elaborate a little bit on that. What do you mean by cross-industry thinking?
Well, maybe I should give an example. What really triggered it and was really the start of pursuing the idea of partnering up with other industries was when I was in Italy at the time in charge of sales and marketing for Starwood Hotels. I met with the purchasing director and we ended up deciding very quickly that it was an opportunity to make our suppliers potential partners. So we decided to organize a day which we baptized The Power of Partnerships, where I laid out what our marketing strategies were. And as much as I was laying out the marketing strategies, I asked the suppliers that were there, would you be interested to tap into our activities, and vice versa? Are there opportunities for us to tap into your customer base? Because ultimately they were interested in the luxury customer. We had a portfolio of unbelievable hotels. And that day was really a trigger because a lot of partnerships sort of started there on that given day, not only between us and the suppliers, but between a lot of those suppliers themselves.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think as well, you also did a bit of a cross-industry jump as well, because you were first in the hospitality industry, right. But then you moved to Ferretti as well, which is the yachting industry. So explain us a little bit, how did that go? That's also a cross-industry jump.
No, it's an interesting question actually, because it's spot on. Basically, because I was conducting part of marketing activities with one of Ferretti's brands, the iconic Riva brand, years later I ended up being invited by the same group to join them because they felt it would add value to have somebody from the hospitality sector joining them. And I won't elaborate too much on it now because we'll have the chance in our future episodes to go more extensively in detail on this. But the bottom line was, it's a good example as to how, that people from different backgrounds, different industries can add value in other industries. And hence why, for instance, I employed somebody from Colgate and got criticized because they said, why mass consumption in a luxury environment? And my answer was simple. Well, this lady knows a lot about marketing and she can learn about luxury and we can learn about marketing from her.
Yeah, for sure. No, makes sense. And if we look back at the hospitality industry, I mean, I personally love the hospitality industry. I work in the hospitality industry as well.
Right.
It's based around having a good time. But why do you think it's such a good working platform? Why do you think it's such a good platform to connecting to people, for example?
Well, I think already organically, just because of the nature of the beast, you have people from all over the world that are customers in hotels. Okay. So for me, it's so obvious that if you want to tap into a diverse group of customers, you could deploy your efforts against doing things with the hospitality sector. Hence why I call it a tremendous platform.
Yeah, for sure. And why do you think that makes it so interesting for your podcast as well?
Well, I think it's interesting not only from people, for people from within hospitality, but people that have maybe never thought of, hey, is there any opportunity that I could pursue by doing business with the hospitality industry?
Yeah.
Beyond this supplier relationship that I mentioned earlier in the example, it could be technology. You want to deploy your technology. What could be your first platform? Could be hospitality, because you could test it, you could benchmark it, you could test it towards a lot of customers from different, feeder markets. So that's just an example, but it could be applied to many other sectors. And that's why I think it's interesting for me to invite guests that come from other industries to have conversations around that subject, because perhaps it triggers ideas.
Yeah. And of course, depending on the location of a hotel, for example, you can also tap on different people's interests, right?
No, absolutely. And a hotel, a destination, it's again, something that is a given very often to be attractive to many other industries, because it's such a vast ecosystem. And, I don't think it needs more explanation. It just needs pursuing and understanding what can be done, with it, so to say.
Yeah. And let's take a look at Portugal, for example. You live in Portugal now, of course. So will Portugal also be addressed during this podcast?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, not for nothing is the country I live in. You were actually born here, even though you grew up in Italy. I mean, the podcast will also touch upon, and that's the third aspect, cultural perspectives, destinations, and living in Portugal. I owe it to Portugal as well to give a lot of emphasis, especially in the first series of the podcast, to talk with guests that know about Portugal, that have done business with Portugal, from a destination perspective, from a hospitality perspective, but again, from a destination that could be a platform for innovation beyond hospitality and tourism.
Okay, and if you look at the future of your podcast as well, who do you think is going to be your main audience? Are you going to focus more on the academic world, or more the hotel world, or industry leaders? Who do you think your audience will be?
Well, no, I don't want to sort of pre-describe and set any boundaries. I think it's very much people that are curious and intrigued about what can happen when you cross perspectives, right? Not only from an industry point of view, from a very personal point of view, from a cultural point of view, because ultimately these conversations could trigger ideas, and ideas that could be put into execution. So more specifically, when we're talking about the type of people, the profiles, I would say it could be as much hospitality executives as executives from other industries. We'll be inviting a lot of people from different types of fields and areas. Same applies to generations. I will be, very glad to have very young people on board as well. Always, because that entire diversity concept, I think, is what will be adding value to the conversations.
Yeah. And are there certain, so you mentioned fields, are there certain fields you have an eye on that you would really like to focus on?
Yeah, there's one foremost which intrigues me a lot, which is basically the combination artificial intelligence and soft skills, because we live in an era where we talk about AI every day today, right? We're testing it, and it's going at the speed of light. And we should, and I think from a leadership point of view, but also, from all points of view at home as well, we should really try to see how can we merge this development in AI, and at the same time maintain and actually increment the soft skills of people. And that connects me very much to hospitality industry, because there it's all about soft skills. So can you transfer these soft skills into other sectors? For instance, that would be one topic I would like to address. How do you educate the youngsters, making sure that they give creative input, which is a soft skill by itself as well, in order to get creative output through AI? Those are topics that specifically is a topic that intrigues me a lot. I would love to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other industries will also be looking at the hospitality industry in terms of soft skills, because they get used so much. We are a service sector at the end of the day, and it is all about connecting and
Absolutely.
and taking people through the guest journey. So you've touched on it already, but when you invite guests, what do you hope the listeners will take away from these conversations?
Well, I really think that the podcast will achieve its goal when it triggers curiosity that leads to ideas, and that possibly leads to ideas being implemented and executed. Opening up a perspective already is a success when you talk about the conversation. So you just mentioned earlier, I like the example you gave of transferring hospitality soft skills into other industries. Well, I mean, the medical world, for instance, I think it would be very interesting to have the CEO of a hospital group, invited and asked questions about what is his approach from a hospitality point of view towards his customers, which are his patients. So that's the kind of conversations that I would like to bring forward. And again, if they trigger interest and curiosity, then the podcast is achieving its goal.
Yeah, no, definitely. And before we finish, I have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
I'll start with the first question. What's one word for you that describes great partnerships?
Trust.
Okay, it's a good one. Then one industry that inspires you today?
I'm going to have to say hospitality.
Yeah, you have to say hospitality, of course. Yeah. Then one place where great conversations happen?
Around the dining table.
Around the dining table.
Food is the biggest connector in the world.
That's true. Yeah. And if you had to pick a meal to have this great conversation with?
There's a lot of meals, but let's go for pasta.
Pasta, good choice. Then what is a quote you would like to end with?
Well, I'm here with my family. That's my first partner.
Yeah. And what's a quote you also, one that I remember you always saying?
I knew you were going to ask this. Every conversation is a good conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, Dad. I'm curious as well to see how the podcast will evolve, and also curious to see what kind of guests you'll be hosting as well. And I'll definitely tune in for sure.
Well, that's great, because if you tune in, that means that a lot of other youngsters might tune in as well. So
hopefully.
Thanks again. Really appreciate it, Luca. I hope to have you on the podcast again.
Yeah.
Okay. Where I'll be reversing things and ask you questions. So it was great to have you. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the listeners. And I would like to take advantage as well to announce the next Unfiltered Connections episode will be featuring Dennis Redmond, who is a veteran foreign correspondent and award-winning news journalist. So tune in for the next episode. Thank you.